Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar with me and Axel. Today, we're going to talk about business agility in B2B. So, Axel, will you take the lead?
Absolutely. Hey, welcome. So let me share my screen before we go. You should be seeing a nice red screen now. Correct? Henrik, you see my red screen?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, welcome. My name is Axel Iyengar. I'm based out of Munich, Germany. I'm the Industry Strategy Director for Global Automotive and EMEA Retail. And many of you will know Adobe from our creative products, such as Photoshop or InDesign, but we also have a significant digital marketing business around content management, analytics, campaign, and of course, commerce. So our mission statement is changing the world through digital experiences. And that's what we're really kind of driving in our mission where we go. With that, we are really kind of trying to understand and help customers to evolve that digital is changing the way how their customer experience is driven, how new ways of working is enabled by digital, and also how innovation and creativity can be fostered. And with that, really kind of give everyone from emerging artists to global brands everything they need to design, deliver exceptional digital experiences. So that's really about what we have today. If we look at how Adobe is transforming the way business competes is around customer experience, about new ways of working and innovation of creativity. But the key thing is to be agile. We talk about business agility in these three overlapping pieces. That's where the magic happens, where we as Adobe help businesses and customers drive innovation, drive and excel in their work. If we look at Adobe, here's a classical enterprise journey that we have, which is in the concept and design phase and the asset creation. That's where Creative Cloud, so all these creative tools are. Then we have everything from asset creation all the way to measurement analytics. That's where the Experience Cloud sits. That's also where our commerce engines is in. That's where our marketing engines are in. And then we have the Document Cloud around PDF and our sign business that we have in here. Just as a little reminder that we're not just PDF, we're not just Photoshop, we have a huge business supporting our customers across every industry in their digital transformation. And with that, I like you to get you to the next stage, which is how do we kind of excel in COVID? Because I think we can't speak about any situation today without at least touching on the impact of COVID. And this impact of COVID has been additional to the disruption that was done in B2B anyhow. We already had predictive and preventive maintenance management. IoT is big on the rise, not only at the customer level, but also in the workflow and data insights level. We have a detail-driven customer engagement out there, real-time analytics, not only of machinery and through IoT, but also data modeling around what's going on in the industry is key. We have a lot of shift around new services as becoming a business model, subscriptions that become the norm rather than the out norm. But there's also, if you look into heavy industry engineering, we're looking at augmented reality. How do we use technology today to do maintenance or service right at the customer level? So all these different things come together in a COVID world where factories were closed, supply chain stopped, a massive piece that came on top of it. But I think, and I'm using the word opportunity is very carefully because it's a bad thing happening globally. But also it helps to kind of make us rethink what are we doing at this time? How are we working in our space? How do we work with our customers and our vendors? How do we, as employees, are enabled by the organization to work from home? That I've been bound home since February, as most of my colleagues also, and our offices are closed. So it's a totally rework of business that we have in Adobe. And across our customer base, it's the same. So most of you will be sitting at home yourself. So rethinking of how do we engage with customers? How do we get them excited, right? And if we look at the pandemic in terms of, we saw that there is an acceleration in the shift that we saw in B2B. So 94% of executives in North America said e-commerce is critical to their business advantage. And we see that coming up here too. The US is a little bit ahead of that than in Europe. But if we look at B2B buyers, say, they have used Amazon 82% for their purchase at work. So it depends obviously what kind of a purchase they were making, but still these marketplaces make a lot of noise and will give a lot of opportunity also if you rethink your business models and where you want to go. So more than 50% of all industry will price and package their offerings in the future as subscription or flexible services. Or some will be based on consumption and not only on the investment of the machinery, for instance. So there's a lot of notion around these pieces that needs companies, businesses to rethink how they drive their digital business. And if we look my daily business, I'm practically 10 hours a day in video meetings, in phone calls, and less in emails. So these touch points have been massively pushed up. And that is something that also the sales force or the field in your organization need to get effective of, because there's a massive shift. You can see that from the McKinsey study from May, that 65% of B2B decision makers believe that new model is effective or more than prior covered, which means also on an executive level, you're seeing a lot of notion around how do I change the way I work with my customers. And that's a survey with Thomson Wunderman in June 2020 on sales channels used by B2B buyers. And you can see a quite same amount of shift that you saw in the B2C area, which is avoiding the physical contact, but more using the remote and the virtual areas around digital portals or via phone or via marketplaces. And the pipeline in here is something like 22% comes from marketing, despite 10 years ago. And if you look at the challenges in B2B, besides on top of mind the excellent customer service, all these different points on the left-hand side you see all are part of the customer service side. So it's about personal engagement, it's about mobile engagement, it's about understanding, analyzing the sales data. It's about understanding individual customers, which all flow into the customer service layers. So that's something that is very key. And 71% of B2B customers currently at risk of taking the business elsewhere because they don't get the right treatment. And last aspect of this here, we see a massive shift in the generation Generation Z millennials moving into B2B space, becoming professionals, moving into senior roles. And with that, there's a huge expectation of these gender groups to have the right, the tools they have in their private life to have them also on the business side and be treated in the same way. So in this B2B world, and I tend to say there is no B2B and there is no B2C. I'm a trusted believer in that. There's only one. It's B2H. It's business to human. And with that, we need to understand who the human is. What is he interested in? What is the next step that he wants to? And obviously the B2B buying process is much more complex and much more layered across the organization. But in the end, it's all driven by humans we need to understand, need to attract. But how do we do this? And we believe we need to anticipate the moments that matter, right? We need to have a hyper awareness of business behavior, either through digital or through your service centers, and see how your customers in the B2B space are behaving. We need to rely on AI to consume the data, to understand the data, and drive into intelligent decision-making that is supported and driven by data and insights. Last but not least, everything of this, it needs to be in real time. We as consumers are already, we are getting nervous when we don't get your mobile device showing the right content in a second or so. People getting nervous. It's the same time in B2B. You need to be real time. You need to have relevant experiences, the relevant content across every channel in real time. And that is something that is a crucial part of delivering these moments that matter. And if we look at the DNA behind such a data-driven business, is that you need to know the interest, the status quo of your customer and your characteristics, as well as the communication preferences. And if you have that, these are mandatory in creating that value, because you know my interest, you know where I'm coming from, you can predict where I'm going, and you can be where I am. And as I said before, addressing and understanding the human behind it, regardless if it's in a professional life or in his private life, it's important that you kind of address him with the right context in the journey pieces he's in. So the customer journey is key in understanding each of these steps to be contextual and right in the moment that you're delivering it, and doing this in real time. And to do so, we always talk about building a digital foundation. Often this is a blurry word, and I try to introduce something to you that we found helping build an acronym around it. We call it a digital chassis. The chassis is the most important piece of the car. It's not the engine, it's not the tires. The chassis keeps the whole thing together. If it's stiff, it's going to be a fantastic and beautiful stiff car. If not, it's going to be very, very, it's going to be a bad car if that's stitched together. So take this acronym as a platform that everything else is being attached to. The wheels are, the engine is attached to, the bodywork, everything that is being produced from a car. But everything has been told together by the chassis. And the components for real-time execution are content. It's around commerce, so the commerciability, it's data, but also the customer profile. If all these components are on that chassis, you're able to have that real-time execution. And there's a lot of buzz around tearing down silos. I'm an honest belief that you can't tear down silos, because the silos are there for sometimes a good reason, because they are optimized also for production. What I believe is you need to build a foundation or have that digital chassis for business agility underneath all these different silos, so that they look at the same data and analyze it in their meaning. They use the content that is consistent and across all different stages of the journey, and have the customer profile at any step, regardless if it's in the lead generation time or the marketing campaign side, all the way to the service layer. They should look at the same profile, understanding where is the customer, what is his need, where's his problem right now, how can we help him? And last but not least, making all these different moments that I'm talking about shoppable, commerciable, transactional, however you want to call it, making it possible for any moment where your customer is on a journey. Is it on a service journey? Is he on a sales journey? Is he in a buying journey? He's able to interact and transact something with you on his terms and not on the terms of the customer on the band. So if we look at heavy industries, for instance, in the oil industry, right, there's a big B2B area in there, and they transform the business along the customer needs, right? So you have, potentially you have a fuel production and you have a gas station. They're all independent, but they all serve one customer that they need to understand. So kind of having that chassis that is kind of engaging with the fuel production headquarter, analyzing the demand of fuel, how much is going in. This is crucial that they connect with the gas station, with the supply chain, and connect all these different dots to understand what's going on and to understand what is the next best offer, next best action that my customer needs. What, in this term, what my fuel station needs. Are we serving with the right supply chain amounts we have? So combining all these different points into one place and to react is key. And the next layer, these gas stations will be also using that chassis to interact with their customers, which is key. And those different things as a mind, that how you can see that chassis as a platform, as a foundation to build all these different things around content, data, customer profile, and the transaction component, which is the commerce piece. I have 3-4 little insights, and we're going to share that back afterwards. I'm not going to drag you through every of these, but there are 3-4 core components that I talked already around the chassis with. So having that content foundation is key to deliver these experiences that are most likely to engage. And with the data you're having with AI, these will drive customers into loyal fans, because you're giving them the right insight, the right activities, and the right contents when they look for it. The second one is obviously improving revenue by leveraging the data you have in your company effectively to target segments or priority segments. So enabling these different lines of business within your business to real-time customer experience and driving that last millisecond of before you transact. So that's the data side, the content of the data side. But also is about how how do I improve my customer acquisition by leveraging data on high value leads. So how do I maximize top audiences? How do I drive not only in the digital sales, but also how do I support my field with the right information when they are with their customers once they're able to travel again? So these kind of lead management pieces are so important. And we know that, there are approximately 16 people in a B2B customer journey and most of you will only know 2 or 3 people of this journey. The rest is hidden in the organization of your customer. So by using data, using and understanding who's interacting in the backside of digital channels, for instance, with you, you're able to kind of evolve and see who is that customer and attract them with the right content. Although you don't know them, you can have AI through that organization and show them the content that most likely fits into that customer profile, which is key. But it's also key to have how do I increase my B2B e-commerce marketplace? So enabling, that's our commerce engine also, where we help build marketplaces so you can expand your sales, your commerce for part sales in this samples into a broader range and support your direct sales partners, but also doing it direct to your customers. This one sample was airline parks, and they launched marketplaces within 12 weeks. And they had around 1 million in sales after 10 weeks. So this is something that is massively adaptive from customers. And this is something that shows also how that is. And I'm sure Amo and Henrik is going to give you a little bit more samples of how to drive these different things. And B2B is it comes from all oil industry all the way down to parts business, all the way down to dealer inventory and car sales. So this is something that is not unique to one specific industry. It really counts for the whole B2B area. And we saw that, the likelihood of companies that provide outstanding digital experiences being a primary supplier is 2 points higher. So this is something that is already on top of mind of buyers' selection criteria. How do I interact with my vendors? How do I drive these kind of activities? So, and with that, last word, we believe and strongly believe that experience matters more than ever. And it's regardless if it's B2B or B2H or B2C. In the end, we need to address humans. We need to work with them. We need to give them the right content, the right moment, and help them solve the problem, driving value right to the spot and using digital and using content. And with that, I'm handing over to Henrik. And he will show you much more how they do that around the customer journey.
Thank you very much, Axel. I'll just be sharing the screen from my side. See what I can do in giving you a good experience and driving value as well to you on this webinar. So, I'll make sure you see my screen. Axel, can you confirm you see my screen?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. B2B commerce was already moving very fast prior to the pandemic, and as we just saw, the numbers have been up since. We also see a lot of additional digital investments into new commerce solutions, basically to cater for this move onto a more digital ordering. I'll be talking about 3 different topics. So I'll be talking about the state of B2B commerce customer journey. So how does that look like in 2020? The technological foundation, and also about organizational rewiring. So quickly about me, I'm the Global Director of Strategy at Vimo. I lead our consultancy side of the business while also working hands-on as a senior capacity within digital enablement and digital strategy. Vimo is a global digital commerce agency. We drive success in digital commerce and are helping our clients with insight, strategy, platform implementation, and operational support. So basically everything around digital commerce. I'm very humble about how we are trusted by clients from all over the world. And for most of this, digital commerce is one of the most important strategic pillars in the strategy. We work with retailers, brands, and manufacturers across many different verticals, across B2B, direct to consumer, or should I say business to human, just to tie into what Axel talked about earlier. But I'll be taking you on a very pragmatic journey around B2B customer journey. If you have been working with digital marketing or been working with customer experience, you have come across the wording around customer journey before. You might have seen it, but I'm just going to walk you through it high level anyway. So it is a term that is usually used to kind of paint the steps for a customer, a prospect that's moving through a funnel and moving through a kind of a cycle to place an order or become a customer in the business. And usually early stages around awareness and discovery is all about how do we attract customers and how do we get them, inspire them, and help them find the right things, where evaluation and ordering is more about how do we turn that into transactions, where service is focused on building customer retention and customer lifetime value. But I'll be taking you on this very practical journey with, let's call him Adam. He's on the lookout for a specific set of products. He don't know exactly what it is yet. He might go on Google, just start Googling for product category, specific product or something like that. He might also know that he might find this product with specific suppliers. So he might go to your website or competitor's website. One of the interesting findings when we do field research and doing on-site customer interviews is that usually many buyers, B2B buyers, they have multiple preferred suppliers that they work with. So they also have multiple windows and tabs open, and usually use that to look up pricing and product availability across multiple sites at once, especially if they do regular ordering. But it might also be that he looks up in a printed catalog, and this seems very weird in 2020 that these are still around, but it's very industry specific. For example, if it is spare parts and so on, we see that the physical catalogs is still very much in use. And one of the reasons for that is that if you take an A5 size or A4 size in a catalog, and you're looking for a bolt or something, a spare part that comes in many different dimensions and many different sizes, getting that overview in a physical catalog is sometimes easier for the customers than going on the mobile side and just scrolling through many different options. Of course, we always try to replicate that as much as possible on digital, but we see in some industries the physical catalogs is very much still in use. It do give the challenge though that if you come across a catalog that is 5 or 8 years old, there might be products that is not sold anymore have been replaced. So that's something that we usually try to cater for, which supports some logic around superseded products and so on, because basically what the user is doing, just going to the website and punching in this item number. So that's something to be aware of. We also see growth in new channels. So I could talk half the day just about marketplaces and what's happening in that space, but just for you to be aware that there's many ways that the B2B buyers now find and then now research, really kind of replicating the behavior we see on B2C as well. So if we then move on and we now look at like the Adam here, he now has come to a website. If he's not already a customer with us, we just want to make sure that the onboarding is as easy as possible. I know some of you is working in industries where you have rigid kind of processes that everybody needs to be approved, but we need to realize in this case, usually the buyers here, they are already in that purchase mode. So if we're having a 3-day approval process, we're already losing out on that opportunity. So automate everything that can be automated, credit checks and so on. If there's going to be credit checks, just offer credit card payments in the beginning and then invoicing payments whenever that credit check is done and so on. So really trying to remove the friction as much as possible in the early stages of the journey. If we then look at account, we want to make that easy, especially if you're a company that have multiple divisions and portals and systems. Really utilize like one login, because the user doesn't really understand that I need to have several different logins to different services and so on. This is an example from Lantmännen in Sweden that both have like spare parts, but also have like agriculture crops and so on that they sell. They have one unified login. So are you a farmer? You just use that and you don't use multiple logins. It gives you access to all the different services that they offer. If We'll just continue a little bit, and now Adam is moving a bit more into the discover phase. That means that he is now starting to find different products and so on. And this is really here where we need to excel at the basics on the commerce website, such as just having performance there. It needs to be fast, it needs to be pleasant, and it needs to have a user-friendly design, easy to navigate. But on top of that, what's becoming more important is actually also to deliver personalized experience. I actually talked about that earlier as well, and really understanding how to tailor that customer experience towards the user. And this is becoming more important on B2B, and we now see that's the kind of baseline expectations. I just want to see the products as relevant for me, the campaigns and the content, and the expectation from the users is kind of rising, as well as the B2C side, and that behaviors is getting improved as well. But one of the main components is actually to get right a search. And the reason for that is, especially in the B2B space, where you might have like millions and millions of different products, it's very difficult to navigate and find a product just using a regular kind of catalog structure. So we see search is the thing that most of the users are using, and just getting that right is very, very important. So being able to search, have spell like different kind of attributes, might even be, barcode scanning, using leverage on AI and intelligence to catch spelling mistakes, to translate different attributes such as size, for example. So if I search on centimeters, the search engine would understand centimeters is also equal to inches. So if something in that, understanding those kind of attributes and coming up with different synonyms and so on is very, 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 very important. It's also one of the most difficult things to sometimes get right, because it's really much based on also the data quality you have beneath. When we talked about the digital chassis before, like having the baseline in place is some of the most important things to also being able to deliver a good search experience. Then depending on the industry, we see a lot of like product configurators, guides, and so on to help the users to find the right products as well. And if you do these things right, especially the search and this like guiding the customer, this could also be relevant in the early stages, in the awareness phase as well. When we talk with end users, they usually have one preferred site that they always go to for some specific products. And what comes up again and again is always, this site have the best search, this site have all the products, and so on. So actually doing this right could also drive additional kind of traffic, and also make sure that your customers always come to you as the first place to search. Whenever we start finding the products, now something like high quality product information becomes available, having the right product information attributes. What you want to do is remove all uncertainties. For a guy like Adam, I need to make sure this is the right product. I don't want to go to a separate page or separate site to make sure that this is actually the spare part I was looking for. So make sure that is available. If you're selling chemicals, make sure that the relevant information is also available on the product detail page. So now starting to find the right product, confirm that this is what we're looking for. Then we're now moving into the evaluate phase. And this is really where something around inventory becomes really important. So we see a lot of industries where like availability of products is very, very important. So I need to see, how can I get this product? Is it in stock? Is it in stock in the local brands? Can I pick it up myself? It is industry specific still. So if you're in a business selling building supplies, delivery time, I need to have this on site next Thursday, because that's where I have people on site. They need to sign off on it getting delivered, or I want to have it the day before, so it's available for them in the morning. Becoming more and more important, it might also be that you're looking for a spare part for a machine that just broke down. So how fast can you get this? Can I drive myself to the brand to send somebody to get it, or getting it out as quickly as possible? So inventory and lookup on this is definitely one of the kind of deciding factors for people to do purchase on a B2B solution. So that's definitely one of the baseline things that's always in place if you're looking into B2B commerce journeys. Then you're moving into pricing. It needs to be customer specific pricing, of course. Like a lot of businesses operate with like price lists, customer specific price lists, depending on how much they buy and what their contracts is and so on. That needs to be reflected here as well. Again, I want to make sure that I'm buying at the right price. If I'm not sure, I just end up calling the sales rep or calling customer service anyway, and then the whole point is kind of just doesn't really make sense. So we need to replicate that customer specific pricing, campaigns, and so on. So we replicate that in the digital channel as well. And when it comes to pricing, we see this step happening quite a lot, price validation. So when we look at data, we can also we can see like some clients, they have the challenge for customers to fall off in the cart. And when we then dig a little bit further into this, what we realize is that what's happening is that customers is adding things to their cart, and they do that on 2 or 3 different sites, and then they're doing price comparison, and then they end up going with the one that have everything in stock or maybe having the best price. So just understanding those mechanisms, and also if that's relevant in your industry as well, you know, build in a ability to ask for a quote or highlight your value proposition or something like that. That's a very, you know, typical thing that we at least try to do to make sure that we still capture the order here. So moving further, so let's say that our dear Adam here is now ready to order. It might be that he's forced to make the order in the ERP system, and that's where something like quick order comes in. So he punches in all the products into the ERP system. He can export that as a CSV file, then upload it into the e-commerce solution, and then automatically all the products are added into the basket. It could also be that he's quickly scanning barcodes as well and adding this. So quick order is definitely one of the baseline features that we see being used quite a lot. Account, when it comes to checkout, make things as frictionless as possible. Just make it easy. I don't want to re-enter my details. You already have them on the record. I want to just look up different project sites I have, addresses, and get it delivered quite quickly. Talking about delivery, I talked about that before, like inventory and so on also ties into that delivery on, I want this on Thursday between this and this time, you know, and again, that's very dependent on the industry, but we see this growing, like the complexities around this is growing quite a lot. And I think it's also been pushed a lot around the pandemic as well, especially on the B2C side. We have a lot of retailers looking into how can they actually expand their offerings around, you know, getting curbside, the delivery on site, pick up in store, and these things as well. But it's, in some industries, this is very important to get right because there's some time dependencies here. Moving into the last part. So, and this is one of the biggest drivers actually for using a digital solution, and that's really order tracking. I want to be able to see my orders online. I want to see when are they shipped, and we also look at usually recommend for our clients to look at how can we integrate towards our suppliers and vendors as well. So it's something that we need to source from them. How can we reflect that towards the customers and the users so they get estimated time of shipment, and so they have that available to them all the time. And this is really one of the biggest drivers in terms of self-service, because that is really what they want to see. Besides that, they're looking for invoices and shipment notes here as well. And as I mentioned before, like everything around service is definitely something that drives convenience, and convenience besides price is also one of the biggest driver for using a digital commerce solution. So we just zoom out a little bit. What I've just showed you is just the baseline. Of course, depending on the industry, there's a lot of different complexities and a lot of custom features and so on, but this is the baseline that we see that most of the end customers that they are asking for. And even though that I kind of painted this in a very step-by-step approach, the thing we need to realize is that the customer journey usually looks a little bit like this. It goes all over the place. It's not linear. People are jumping in straight into ordering, using quick ordering, jumping out as well. And that's why understanding the customers and the behavior, as Axel was talking about as well, is extremely important. And we need to excel at each of these kind of steps in the journey independently to make sure that we capture customers. So the first takeaway I really have here is like the customer journey is messy and it's not linear. The baseline for B2B customer experience is increasingly rapidly. And we'll see like next year, the baseline is going to be even higher. So to tie back to the presentation that Axel had, and also talk a little bit about how I see the digital chassis in a B2B commerce context. To support the customer journey that I just showed you with all the different features and product information and so on, you need to have the right foundation, exactly as Axel was explaining as well. And for me, it goes like the main components here is really about data quality. So being able to have high quality data. So for example, if you just take your master data from your ERP and surface that straight into the digital commerce solution, would potentially not make a lot of sense for your customers. So you need to have images, you need to have additional attributes and so on. It could also be pricing. So are you pricing really in a state where you can just kind of surface that directly to the customers, or do you usually have sales reps in between that do customer specific pricing on top of the price list? So a lot of changes here, but it all goes back to getting the data quality right is the foundation for everything. The next pillar is having a modern architecture, using best of breed systems. And this is where a lot of companies, they have technical barriers and they work with legacy platforms. And this is also where we usually jump in very early on and creating a plan, creating a roadmap and sequencing to change some of the old legacy systems with newer ones. And the reason why we do that is because they kind of built with the concept of integrating everything together. So this interconnectivity, surface data out of the system, make it available to other systems and so on. And if we do these three components right, it also enables us to be more data driven. So now we can start playing around with tailoring the customer experiences, applying AI to the data. If we apply AI to bad data, we're just going to get bad AI. So AI also needs to have good data to work with, give us more insights, give the sales reps insights on how is their customers behaving, when is the right time to actually follow up on this customer because they're continuously coming back on the site, or this customer is always buying product from this category, but for some reason is not buying product from this other category, but they're always adding it to the basket. So what is the reason for that? Should we do a very custom campaign towards that customer to see if we can acquire that kind of revenue from that category? So this is just kind of the foundation that needs to be needs to be in place. And the takeaway here is really like, if you have this modern and agile digital chassis, it will accelerate your digital growth and also make you more data driven. And if I had to put something on top of here as well, I would also say it will also make you more, you have more agility to react to a situation that we just seen this year, like world turned a little bit upside down with the pandemic, new channels moving, shifting around, gives you a bit more agility to react on some of those, both challenges, but definitely also those opportunities that comes in the market. But there's one key factor if I had to prioritize that I think is slightly more important than this. And I've been working with multiple companies in especially here in EMEA. And one thing is having state-of-the-art tech and the right architecture. And I've even met multiple that have that, but they were still delivering a very terrible customer experience and was not very successful with the digital commerce offering, even though that they have the right digital chassis. And the main reason for that is that digital commerce can be a little bit of a cross-organizational headache. Companies usually divide into different departments, different KPIs, P&Ls, talking about different silos, right, in the company. And how most is onboarding into digital commerce, that they bolt that on side of the business instead of actually building it inside and integrating into the way of working and actually how the business is working. So the salespeople say, by the way, we actually have this, but it's not integrated in their way of working. They're not using the platform themselves. And if they're not using it every day, how are they supposed to onboard the customers and inspire them to use it as well? So, and if we just look at the customer journey, we need to look at the different stages here. There's different departments that mapped out and how they all need to contribute to deliver this good customer experience. So we need high quality product information. We need to be able to serve the correct pricing and giving up to date order status, and every department is involved in making sure that happens. You can also look at it the way that with the digital commerce, the customer is moving behind the curtain, and you need to be kind of prepared to open up and have everything behind the curtain in a state where it's actually possible to do that. And to be fair, the customers doesn't really care that much about different channels, right? If they engage with the sales rep or if they engage online. And I think there's a lot we can learn if we just compare to the B2C retailers, because they've been playing this game for many years. And many of the retailers we work with today that is a bit, that has been doing that, they see that more than 25% of their orders is actually coming in one channel, but getting completed in a different channel. It says a lot of, how omnichannel have evolved over the years. And what good example is Bauhaus that we work with in Sweden. It's today a billion online business, full omnichannel parity, prices, inventory, click and collect, ticks all the boxes that you would do as a online retailer. Order online, pick up in store. I'm getting help from sales rep in store. They don't have it in stock. I just get it delivered at home for example. And I know that many B2B business can have a more complex business model, and comparing to retailers can be a little bit, a little bit too easy. But I think it's all about taking ownership of the customer experience, and you as a company trying to think outside in and see, how does the customer actually engage with us, and how can we kind of support that and even change how we work. And I think one example that I can play on top of here with Bauhaus is actually when they ticked off all this baseline omnichannel expectations. They was looking into what was the feedback they got from the customers, and the thing that they couldn't control, that was actually the last mile delivery, because that was done by a third party, and that was very frustrating for them. So that's actually what they did. They invested quite heavily into this. So today, if you're based out of Sweden, when you can actually deliver with Bauhaus themselves, and giving that possibility to own the journey end to end, seeing delivery times and so on. Since they have it in-house, it gives them more possibilities to make sure that the customer experience is right, and having quick feedback loops here as well, which I think is very interesting. So this is very new. If we look at the automotive space, Volvo recently terminated the agreement with one of the largest dealers in Sweden, while actually buying up one of the competitors to them, so opening their own dealerships to go direct to consumer. And the main reason why they want to do that is to own that end-to-end customer experience. So they want to own it from, like, you go to the website to you go in store, and they also believe that how we engage and how we work is not, it's just going to move across channels. And you might ask, why is this relevant? And I showed just a couple of cases that is more on the retail focus. I think it's relevant because whatever we see here sets a precedence on what's coming for B2B. So all of this, we need to prepare ourselves for that, investing into that digital chassis so we're ready, so we can build on top of that. And we need to change the way that we work as companies as well, to make sure that we deliver a very good customer experience. So that's really, for me, why it's so important to get, put focus on humans, put focus on people, because I believe that's really where it starts. And if you focus on understanding your customers and what's the friction and pains and how do they interact and buy, with that understanding, you also have a good foundation to work internally as well, to understand what is the gaps in those experiences, and how can we start now to kind of narrowing those gaps, in combination with, of course, having the right tools at our disposal. So I think the last takeaway for me is really, like, digital commerce forces companies to rewire and transform themselves to be enabled to deliver a good omnichannel customer experience. So I hope this has been very inspiring for you. Also, what actually had very solid numbers on, how a B2B company is moving more towards customer experience and why is that important. And we will now give you the opportunity to ask us any questions, and we'll do our best to answer them, both of us.